Talking to other.
Hi, I'm Venessa Giunta. I am an author and an editor and an all-around like to talk about things person and a little awkward sometimes. One of my favorite things to do is talk to authors, right? I love talking to authors about their process, their writing, their careers, their marketing, all those things. And I really love just sitting down and just talking about stuff. I mean, communication is my love language. So that's really what I had in mind. I really wanted a situation where I could just have a conversation with somebody. So, and a conversation and a cocktail is really all about us hanging out and drinking together and talking about the stuff. All right. Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to A Conversation and a Cocktail. Let me introduce my lovely friend, Kyoko M.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so excited. We've got a bunch of people out there already. Awesome. I see Anita and James and Tiffany, and there's Joe, of course, and Erica and Faye. Hello, everybody. All right. So I'm so excited to have you here because you and I have known each other for a really long time at this point, and we see each other multiple times every year at different events, at different cons. But we're always working and we never get more than 5 minutes tops to actually talk to each other unless we're on a panel together, which is lovely,
yes,
but still not the same. So I'm so excited you're joining me. Thank you so much. Yay.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this all day.
Yes, me too. Me too. So I'm going to let everybody know Kyoko and I are both not drinking alcohol tonight. We're having a non-alcoholic night. So, but you do have an excellent cup. So
it's a dragon cup and I got it from Temu. Like I remember the day I saw it and I went, this is mine.
You staked out your territory like a good dragon does.
Yes.
So yes. All right. So my first question to all my guests is, what was your radioactive spider bite into writing and especially publishing? Because a lot of us writers were writing at a very young age. So like also into the publishing aspect. So tell us your origin story.
Absolutely. So the origin of why I like to write is definitely influenced by my parents. So my parents read to us every single night when we were kids. So and all kinds of different genres, all kinds of different reading levels. And so because they did that every single night when we were little, we just grew up loving fiction, loving books. I mean, we were such dorks that my mom would literally, like her routine was that when she would go run all her errands and do grocery shopping, she dropped us off at the library and we just stayed there until she was done with all of the stuff she needed to do and came and got us. And it wasn't like a punishment. She didn't have to make us go. We looked forward to it every time. And so I just always grew up like voraciously reading and just destroying, entire bookshelves of things that I read. And I didn't realize that it was starting to form into a way where I like to write. I started writing fan fiction with my friends, which is why my name is Kyoko M. So when we were in middle school, we all made these little original characters for Yu Yu Hakusho. And we wrote this really intricate, of our own little our little take on Yu Yu Hakusho, and we started calling each other by those nicknames. And literally, I was called Kyoko for so long. I now call myself Kyoko in my head. Like I'm not joking. And so, but again, that's just fan fiction. I never thought much of it. And I went to college. I went to the University of Georgia. And originally, I went to go to vet school. It's a very good vet school. But I got about 2 years into my undergrad and I realized, oh, you know what? As much as I love this, it's not what I want to do because the amount of work that I would need to be good at the sciences and it also was the fault of a very bad advisor who gave me chemistry and biology at the same time. And my second year of college. So again, I didn't know any better that you're not supposed to take chemistry and biology at the same time. So it literally ruined my whole semester, broke my whole world. I found out I was not as good at science as I thought. So then I started I know. I started looking at other majors and I went, okay, well, I have always been good at writing. I just never thought of it in that capacity. So what I did is I switched to journalism for one semester. And then after that, I was like, I can do this, but it wasn't in the areas that I was interested in. So I went, okay, well, what if you just go to English? So like, just what if you find out what you want to do in the process? Because I still had another 2 years to go. And so I'm going to say, I think it was the last year I was there. There was an author by the name of Jackson Pierce, and Jackson Pierce is a published author. She writes YA and fantasy, and she was an alumnus. So she came back to the school and she did a chat about publishing. And just on the off chance, I was already very heavily into the English department at the time. And I just went to the talk and I went, okay, I just want to hear about it because I'd only spoken to one other author my entire life. There was an author by the name of Pearl Clayage. But that was just a random, I met her thing and she had a talk that I went to. But up until that point, I had just been writing fan fiction and not thinking things about it until I went to that lecture, and she kind of outlined her own path to how she published and the things that she wrote. And as she was describing it, I went, you know what? I think I do want to write books. I didn't know I wanted to do that until
I could get on this train. That
was the little light bulb moment, is after I attended that lecture and I went, okay, you know what? I think I would like to. Now, it didn't necessarily mean I knew I was going to do my future, because at the time I thought I was going to go into an MFA program, but that didn't work out. But it actually is great that it didn't work out, because it saved me, another $80,000 in tuition.
That part.
So I was just basically working. And so that was when I put together the Black Parade, because that was one, like the idea for the Black Parade had come somewhere between like 2009 and 2010. But like, I basically started to query agents for about 2 straight years as I just continued polishing the manuscript to be ready. And then when I get to the end of the 2 years, I was kind of like, oh, dang, well, I've gotten a whole lot of rejections, but I haven't gotten any like requests for a little bit further. So I was worried that the book wasn't or something to that effect. And so at the time I was in Central Florida. My parents moved down there, so I was with them for a little while. And my dad said, well, you know what? It is 2030. It's the 2010s. And self-publishing has really been taking off. I've been hearing about it. Why don't you kind of take a look and see if that's something you're interested in? I said, oh, sure. And so I did about another solid year of research, and I kind of went, yeah, I think I learned all the different parts that you need to kind of assemble your own kind of self-publishing career. So like I said, I did that for about a whole year. I just studied up on everything I would need to know. And I decided, okay, all right, let's give it a shot. And so that's when the Black Parade came out in 2013, and rest is history.
Yeah, so you've been indie publishing for a long time, over a decade. That's awesome. I didn't realize that about you until I started, like, obviously I did some research before we got here, so I'd have some on point questions and stuff. I was like, girl,
it's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to actually ask you about that. And like, what have you seen? Like, obviously, indie publishing has changed dramatically since your first book, right? So can you give us just like what you've seen that's changed maybe for the better?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons I wrote the Black Parade, and when people ask me that question, it was because at the time, like I said, I did research pretty much from 2009 right up to about 2012. And as I was researching, and this is after I had already written the book though, I was like, where are all the sisters at? I don't understand. Where are all the Black people in fantasy and science fiction? And it doesn't mean they weren't there. What I was saying, it was like, it's taking...
They weren't visible, right?
Yes, it was much harder for me to find them. Those voices were there, but it wasn't really on a platform in which it was easily available. And so part of my motivation of writing the Black Parade is like, you know what? I want that. I want there to be a Black woman in the middle of a crazy urban fantasy story, but like and the other half of it too was I was a little bit frustrated with the type of UF girl that we were getting back in the 2010s. So it was a very specific girl. She was always like on the front cover holding a sword with the leather pants, and her butt is facing the camera. And
always
she has a harem of like 18 guys that all love her, and she's super powerful. And she's never like trips and falls. She just has perfect one-liner. everything
In
about the
other
girl is
words,
based
nothing like us, nothing like real women, right?
Not like real women. And I was like, that's okay, because if you, I love stories in which you aspire to and stuff like that. But
Yes.
I just wanted a grounded girl for once. And so that's the other motivation of why I wrote the Black Beret, is like, not only did I want it to be a Black woman in a urban fantasy space, but I wanted her to be like awkward and traumatized and like deal with things that we deal with as women.
Yeah.
And so that's why. But anyway, I'm arriving at to answer the question, I promise. So what has changed since then to me is that there is a lot more of that being, usually I would have to kind of search for about 10-15 minutes to kind of find a person of color in either urban fantasy, paranormal romance, or science fiction. And we have now gotten a lot better about those being only 1 or 2 clicks away. Before, they were kind of hidden behind all these little spots. You had to go look for specific authors. Whereas now it's definitely a lot more visible in those spaces that we were in before. So like, for example, the other thing I noticed too is they're getting more confident about putting us on the cover. That was the thing. So even my book, I even did that myself. I read the data and they said, if you put the Black girl on here, there's going to be a certain demographic that will not click on your book, even if everything else you described is exactly what they want. So I did the silhouette because I went, you know what? Fine. As a debut author, I will decide to do that. But we've definitely gotten to a place where brown-skinned people are on covers now. And I like the cover of Dread Nation is one of my favorites by Justin Allen. It's gorgeous. But yes, that's what I have noticed, is that one, it's much easier to find us in those spaces, and 2, we are appearing on covers a lot more than we did back in the 2010s.
Yes, I love that too. I really love that. And you were also part of the Tales of Wakanda anthology, is that right?
Yes.
So yeah, for those who don't know, Tales of Wakanda is pretty much what it sounds like, with all BIPOC authors, edited by Jesse Holland, who I got to meet at DragonCon this year. We had dinner together with several other people, and oh my God, he's amazing. I love him. I love him. I want to get him on here someday. We'll see how that goes.
I hope you do. He is a brilliant, brilliant guy.
He really is. And he's so fun to talk to. Like, he's just so fascinating. And it's very clear that he is both smart and articulate, but also relatable, right? You know, and I feel like that's so important for any author to feel relatable in some way, regardless, because I mean, not everybody's going to relate to all of us. I mean, of course not. We're all different, right? But it's so important to have authors that people can relate to, meaning we need to have the weird authors, and we need to have the queer authors, and we need to have the BIPOC authors, and we need to have authors visible for people to connect with. If like, that's my thinking. And I agree with you. I am so happy that there's still so much work to be done, but there's more space now. I feel like, and I'm hoping like the current situation with what's happening in the US right now isn't then gonna it's possible we can fight. We're gonna have to fight to keep that space.
Yes.
And to expand that space, like fight more than even before, I think maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and we were talking a little bit about that earlier. And will you repeat what you were saying before when we were talking about like what's going on now? And you know, like for a lot of us after the election, just to be clear, for those of us who are American, after the election, there's a certain very large bunch of us who are exhausted and demoralized and disheartened. And it's a really difficult time right now. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, guys, so don't feel like we're going to get all caught up in the politics. I don't think we are. But I really want to talk a little bit about what we were talking about before the show in terms of self-care and creating boundaries for yourself, and how you do that, especially as an author, you know, where we're generally have to be forward facing relatively frequently, right? So what did you do post-election?
Absolutely. So one thing that I thought is so crazy and sad and interesting at the same time, a lot of people were like me and dropped Twitter immediately. Just if
yeah.
you had our, and again, I don't blame anybody who left before this point. Like the ones who left with must left. Mine is more stubbornness than anything. I was just like, you know what? I don't want this ugly, stupid hunk of soy protein telling me that I can't be on his platform. So I was stubbornly staying just because he didn't want me there.
Spiteful.
Yes,
Yeah,
spite.
I can handle a life of spite. That works for me. I'm down.
I was hanging on, and even then, like I really mean it. Like if I back before he acquired it, I was probably up to like, I don't know, I would tweet something and maybe 10 or 15 people would like it or whatever. By the time it came to like, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago when mine was still on, it was like, oh yeah, the usage was down because you could feel that everyone was exhausted. Yeah. Everyone who had to be there because again, their fan base is there or that is their mainstream of income, that kind of stuff. It's such an unfortunate thing because some of them have the ability to leave. If their fans went to a different platform, like a lot of people immediately jumped on Blue Sky, which is wonderful. And so far, Blue Sky, I haven't tried it yet, but I have heard it's doing great.
Yeah,
I'm on the anti-Twitter.
I'm on Threads, and Threads reminds me so much of the way Twitter was, not even like just before Elon Musk took it over, but even like it just in the early years.
Yes.
You know, Threads is like that too. I really like Threads a lot.
Yeah. And it was a lot better in the beginning too. Like even we cite Musk with like the second downfall of Twitter. The first was just they kept messing
it was
with
already
stuff.
Yeah, it was already becoming really gross. It just became a cesspool after he took over, right?
Exactly. So the first thing I did was I was like, nope, you know what? You are directly responsible for this, for all of this. This is your fault. You went out to make sure to spread the misinformation and get him back in office. So I went, okay, so I will leave it. I didn't delete mine, but I left it there because I have one friend who that's her only form of communication with me, which is fine. And so I was just like, all right, I'm leaving the account, but I am not using it anymore. No more feed, no more tweeting, no more nothing. I'm just here to talk to her. And that's all we do. She and I just have conversations and I don't even open the feed. I decided that I don't know if it's going to be indefinitely or not. It might be indefinitely. I am no longer on any feed. And I mean in a capacity of like where you click on your feed to see what other people post. No more. I can't do it. And I don't mean that like I have Trump supporters in my household or stuff like that. I literally mean I suffered so much these last 8 years to just be told, by the way, nope, it's going to be twice as worse. And you have to do it again. You have to do all of it, every miserable second again,
and worse,
and worse this time because they've already defined of like, now we're going to get in here and try to literally throw out the election so no one can ever vote us out. So again, all of the trauma that I just went through, that everyone just went through, and I've been told I have to do it again and worse this time. So I just went, you know what? I'm just going to stay with people that I love. I'm going to talk to my friend. All of my people in my networks were just still connected and everything, but I just turned all my feeds off because I was like, I can't absorb anymore at this point. And that is really what it was. And that's why I didn't delete anything. I just went, maybe I'll feel stronger in 6 months, in a year or something. But I was just like, I can't do it again. I remember every day waking up and just being like, God, because every day he found a new low. Every day he found a new one. No matter what you thought, he couldn't sink lower. Every time.
Yes. I mean, he definitely was very consistent in that, at least.
And so that was why I just went, you know what? We can't do it this time. I can't absorb. So whatever major things happen, I'm sure I will hear about, just from, again, it's still operating in society. But for me personally, I just went, I can't handle this all over again. Because again, I remember in a way, I appreciate that people kept their feeds on for the first time we had to suffer through this shit. Because a lot of us coming together is how we got through it. And I do think that we will do that again. But I think that everyone is just got PTSD from this shit. And
for sure.
We I tell everybody, take a break, do whatever you need that's not harmful to just try and figure out how to put yourself on solid ground by now. It just, because there's nothing to do. It's like, even when it happened, like I said, normally when something traumatic happens or something bad happens, you try to find a way to cope. I didn't even try to find a way to cope, because I went there. There's nothing. There is nothing that therapy
already.
Yeah, I did it already. There's nothing I can do. I'm already in therapy. I already take medication for anxiety. There's nothing I can do. So it just was like this big numbness. And that's when I turned all my feeds off. I just went, yep, we're just going to wait until I reach a point where I can engage again with, and like I said, just staying with family and friends, being with people I care about. That's all I'm focusing on.
Yeah, I actually, I can't stand Facebook, and but like I run a pretty big writerly support group on Facebook, because it's the kind of the best place to have a group. Does that make sense?
It is.
And so, so like there's this browser extension called Newsfeed Eradicator. And it will, like, instead of getting your feed, and it'll do it on Facebook, Twitter, like it's got a whole bunch, Instagram and stuff like that. Instead of seeing your feed, you just see an inspirational quote. And you can add inspirational quotes to it. It'll just randomly pop them up. And then you can pause it for a little while if you want to actually go in and look at your feed. Well, I tell you how much time I got back in my life when I started using this extension.
Yes.
I can't even. So now I just go to Facebook and check my groups. I'll check in on people if I need to check in on people. And then I'm done. Don't have to worry about it.
I taught myself to just be like, and the thing is, like, what I found is that I can switch my energy. Like, I kept Instagram, because Instagram, of course, my algorithm, if I mess it up somehow, it is very frustrating. But for the most part, all it's showing me are the things I go to Instagram for, which are hot guys, movie clips that I like, occasional funny skits from people that I've never met before, like situational humor. It pretty much only gives me that. So far, it has never like stuck its head into sending me anything political or anything news related. So I went, okay, so most of what I did is like I took all the time I used to use on Twitter and just dumped it in. Oh, okay, I just go on Instagram now. Tumblr never changed other than when they got all the porn out of here. So that's the other thing. I'm just like, okay, the two feeds I know I can do, and I'm not going to get all the other interference are going to be Tumblr and Instagram, and I just go on those, and then that's it.
Yeah. And I really like Threads, because the Threads algorithm feels really like you can control the algorithm much more than other ones I've seen, because you'll often see posts that are like, hey, dear algorithm, please send me, and it's just like the type of people they want to connect with. And then you've got all these and things like that, like if it's like writers or people who like diversity and stuff like that'll come up in my For You feed or whatever, and it's like, oh yes, I'll follow this person, which then kind of solidifies the type of stuff I want to see, right?
Okay, and that's good. I'm glad they do that, because my friend told me Blue Sky does that a lot too. Like the algorithm notices what you're following, and it'll start giving you suggestions.
Because once I started watching, so there's this thread in there, and y'all, this is silly. There's this thread called females in male space, or women in male space, or male jobs, or something like that. And what it is it's like a hashtag, right? And it's a parody. It's like everybody posts. It's like these parody posts of like women saying what men say to women to men.
Oh,
you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Like, oh, I was walking by, and that new male secretary was there, and I gave his ass a little pat or something like that, right? And they're hilarious. And when I tell you the Twitter, so all the Twitter guys are infiltrating Blue Sky and Threads, because there's no one to fight with over there anymore, which is where they get their joy in hating people. So they come over, and like I use that hashtag to go through comments so I can preemptively block them. So they
that's awesome, because that's what my friend told me. She was like, oh yeah, all the gross guys tried to come from Twitter to here, and Blue Sky said, no, go back to where you came from. Friend. Oh yeah, several
go hang out with your people.
This is not your place. We are not letting you over here. You are not going to stink up our place. This is not your place.
That's right. We keeping this place clean. You are not a part of it, my friend. That whole That, and it makes me think of that little cartoon, and I don't know if you've seen it. It's a meme now, but it's just like a little one panel cartoon, and it's like a majority little blobs of one color, and then a couple blobs of a different color, and the big group of blobs is like, you don't belong here, make your own space. So they go and make their own little space, and then the big blob is like of people is like, you're being exclusionary. We want to be there too. And so they come in, and then they're all in this little spot. And the big blob is like, you don't belong here. It's like,
Chasing you from
that's
spot to
exactly
spot
what
to
it is.
spot.
Right. It's like, come on now, sit all the way down. All right. So now that we've got that out of our system, I do just want to underline that it's really important to do what you need to do to keep your peace, right? Like, and you needed to step away from all your feeds. I needed to tell my family that I'm not doing Thanksgiving with them this year, because I just am not in an emotional space where I am okay being surrounded. Like my people are not MAGA people. I mean, one of them I think is, but very wisely has not spoken to me about it since 2017. But they are Trump voters. They did vote for Trump. And I told them I am not in an emotional place to be surrounded by people who have voted for a party that wants people that I love to not exist. And I can't, that's not, I'm
And it
not in
makes
a
me
place for that
so
right now.
sad that you have to do that. That
Yeah.
people are. There's so many people who are not going to get to go home for Christmas and for holidays this year, and it makes me so sad that he is responsible for literally removing safe places, or even just enjoyable. Not safe, because obviously the people that if you don't want to have those conversations, you don't want to have them. But it's removing that aspect of your life. It's controlling a part of your life, and that is just so not okay.
Yes,
so not okay.
I agree. 100%. But it's really important to create those boundaries with people, even if they don't like it. Like my sister right now is messaging me because she worked out that I'm not going. And she's like, are you mad at mom? And I'm like, really? Not just. But at any rate, enough about me. All right, let's get back to the creativity and stuff. So you talked about fanfic and stuff. Now, when I was young, it was way before the internet, and but my best friend in high school and I would write what was essentially a giant fanfic about Duran Duran, because they're my guys, as everybody already knows. So, but we would like pass back and forth, So you kind of came out of fanfic as well in a number of ways. So one of the things I've noticed as an editor is that, and I have no problems with fanfic, let me just make that clear, but I do find that people who came up in fanfic sometimes have weaknesses that I feel like make sense. So I guess my question is, did you find any challenges in transitioning from fanfic over to original work?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things when I was a kid is that you would get reprimanded and flamed if you described your OC at any point in your story. I mean, again, now this is, and it's funnier because this was before the reader kind of showed up. So in the older, again, I'm an elder millennial, I call myself. So back in the day, back on fanfiction.net, there was no AO3 yet. There was a certain way that you wrote fan fiction, and you had to kind of assimilate to the way that everybody did it. And so that was one of the things. You do not ever describe your OC, because you get labeled a Mary Sue when you do that. And so I was so used to that there are two things I suck at as an author. One, remembering to describe the character, what they look like, what they're wearing. And two, describing the setting. Same thing. Everybody would yell at you if you over described what room they're in or where they're moving, or anything that was purple prose, you would get flamed for immediately. So like, that is an impulse I have to still fight at 35 and a half years old. I'll just go, Keo, you didn't describe anything. Stop.
It's a big wide room.
I know. I'm so bad. So like, literally, that's one of the passes I do on, like, probably I would call it about third draft or so. First two drafts are just content, so dialogue, character arc, and plot, whatever. And then there's a couple of other cosmetic passes I do, and one of them is going, did I describe them at any point? How did I describe them? How was the last time I described? It's so bad. And I've gotten better about remembering to do physical descriptions, but settings, oh yeah, I'm still awful.
Oh my gosh.
As long if it's plot relevant, I can do it. No issue. But like if you just say like
for like atmosphere or I'm same. And that comes for me. That comes from me as a reader, because when I would get to like Tolkien is like a study in patience for me, because when I would get to these giant paragraphs of description, I'm just like, what are the major important words in this paragraph? All right.
And that's me. I just don't like, I don't like long text. I don't like the big blocks of, because again, there'll be time, like even, I would say the one that I did it the most was probably of Claws and Inferno, which is the book before of Wings and Shadows. And that was one where it is literally about a tournament of catching dragons. And so in that one, it was much easier because every single chapter would usually be related to a dragon capture. So I had to then describe where they are. And they were basically hopping to different states in the United States. So that, it was the only time it was easy, because I went, oh good, okay, he's in Chattanooga, I know what Ruby Falls looks like, okay, and then I could just like get it in there and it'd be done. That was the only book where it was completely easy, because I had to do a new setting almost every chapter, and then all the other ones, oh my god, yeah, I'm horrible. Like if you ask me, what does Jack's house look like? I don't know.
It's a house.
It's a house. It has two floors.
It's got walls and a roof and a couple doors and a few windows. I mean, what more do you need?
That's all I've got. I just
like in your head, whatever it looks like in your head, my friend.
And that's what I was going to say. Fine. Part of it is that too, is like, as I got older and I wrote more, I realized that a lot of people who come to my book specifically don't come for that. So they're like, oh no, it's fine if you just like give us a general overview, and then my head will fill it in of like what I think it actually looks like. Exactly. I do that a lot with the readers.
Yeah. And for me, like also as an editor, right? The only thing that is really important in those scenes are things that anchor the reader, right? Yes. The other stuff is fluff. If you put it in, great. If you don't, that's okay. Because but you have to make sure that the reader isn't filling in a way that's going to mess up a later scene. So if there's something in there that's...
The one I mentioned a lot is continuity. Even though it's funny because it's in print, it's not like in a movie set, but literally that is something that I've done before, where I'll like, that's something I do when people, it doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while somebody say, hey, could you edit something for me? I'm just, I'm short on cash. Can you do it real cheap? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's fine. And that's one thing I'm very good at catching, is like, if a character has like, if their eyes are green, but then a letter description, they're blue, my brain will actually catch that, which is funny because I'm so ADHD. But like, those things I'm actually pretty good at, like clocking. Like I'll start a scene and then read and go, oh, wait a minute. Did I say this object was here before he picked it? Okay, let me go back up to where I was. And that's what I will use it for. That's what I use that pass for, is like, again, if there are objects in the room that a character is going to pick up at some point, I have to go, oh, wait, okay. So I describe the scene in the opening, make sure it's there. So they don't, like I said, continuity, like that joke in 30 Rock where where she has a Coke in one scene and then she pulls her hand out and then it's a Sprite again. I was like, see, that's fun too.
I mean, that's my life right there. Joe says in the chat, it sounds like you were born a screenwriter. And then he says, never mind, you were born a producer.
I finished my first screenplay this year. No joke.
Ooh, good job. Huzzah. That's the thing I want to play with. I think also because like I don't like writing descriptions. I feel like a screenplay would be easier to write to me.
It was interesting. It was so I have something called the Screenwriter's Bible, and that's how I did like the basics of learning how you format it. And then the program I use is called Writer Duet, which is basically somebody found a free alternative to Final Draft. Which is not horribly expensive. But since I was just experimenting with writing, I went, we'll spend the $200 when I know like I figured it out. So I use this free program. And so what's interesting about it is, again, your average screenplay, unless you're a muckety muck and you're already famous, you can only have 110 pages. And it really forces you to focus. It does. You have to go, I only have a page to tell you what's going on here. I can't be loquacious. I can't. You have to get to the point. You have to figure out the bare bones. I thought it was a very fascinating experience of just like, because like I said, I also, that's the same reason I didn't, the first screenplay I picked, I did not do one of my books. I did a dream that I had, and I said, okay, I want it to be really low stakes and not stress myself out. I'm definitely a perfectionist when it comes to my writing. So let me pick something where I know the general beats and everything, and I could just kind of like figure out how it feels to write the screenplay itself. And that's why I use that particular concept. And it ended up being really, really interesting because, like I said, all of the scenes, you have to really make them count because you only have so many. The first draft was interesting because I actually wrote it too short the first time. So my first draft was 106 pages instead of 110. And I think it's because I was scared. I was like, oh man, when I get to I was so scared about getting to the third act and not having enough room that I actually did kind of like make it a little bit shorter in the other pieces. So that's one of the things I'll be doing in 2025 is going. I talked to my cousin is a screenwriter and she's brilliant. And she read the first 15 pages for me. And she said, okay, so first of all, make sure that your want is always really, really obvious and like right front and center. What that character wants, even if we don't know all the things about him yet, what they want should be immediately apparent. And then 2, she said that I didn't have enough obstacles, which makes sense because it's a romance. And I could tell as I was writing it, I kept not wanting to make him evil because I like him too much. So my screenplay is about Dracula. I took very heavily influence from Crimson Peak and from the 1992 Dracula.
Both excellent movies.
Yeah. And so as I kept writing, I was like, dang it, I like him. I don't want him to turn evil by the end. So I can tell those are the places where I will have to heavily revise the screenplay because I wanted them to be in love and happy, and it's kind of adorable. And I was like, but it's a gothic story. I'm supposed to have violence and conflict.
Yeah, gothic stories are generally known for being adorable.
I know, right?
Things don't really go together.
It's so funny, but yeah, no, a lot of it, and it's so funny that I took some influences from Crimson Peak because I don't actually like Crimson Peak, but I like the aesthetic of Crimson Peak a lot.
Yes. So I have a funny story about Crimson Peak. I watched it on whatever streaming service it was on, like several years ago, right? And probably about a year and a half later, I'm looking through, I don't even know if it was the same streaming service or a different one. And I'm like, oh, this movie looks good. And so I start watching, I'm like, watched this before. It might have been like, I'm like, watched this before. And as I'm going in, I was like, yeah, I've definitely watched this before. And so I just watched it the rest of the way. And it was fine. And so about 2 or 3 years later, I'm on some, I don't even know what streaming service. I'm like, oh, it looks good. I'm like, wait a minute. Because I kept forgetting the stupid name. I kept forgetting the stupid name. And every time I'd look at it, I'd be like, oh, look, I'd see the little, just the picture that they have with you have to click. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that looks really good. Or I'd read the blurb. That sounds really good. Well, yeah, it was really good. You watched it twice already. So clearly, I didn't watch it the third time, though. It was hilarious. I was like, oh, I'm getting old. I can't even remember the damn movies I'm watching. Damn.
To be fair, like I said, I do love that even when Del Toro doesn't do the greatest job, he never coasts. That man, even though I don't think Crimson Peak is a good movie, he puts 110% into every film. And I'm like, I love that about him.
There are things about Crimson Peak that I think are fabulous, like the setting and the whole, like you were saying, the whole aesthetic, like that whole, the vibe of it is like perfect. It is awesome. So Joe is rubber stamping your Screenwriter's Bible and Writer's Duet because those are both his go-to as well. I actually got Screenwriter's Bible for my birthday, Christmas, I don't know, some holiday recently. Great thing about Writer's Duet is you can save it as a final draft doc and no one knows.
Yes, they let you export to almost any file type. When I saw that, I went, you guys are geniuses. Because again, you can write the entire thing there, edit all of it there, because it operates inside of your browser. But again, it's protected. Nobody else can see what you're doing. But when you're done, yes, you can export it into any file type, including
That's
final
brilliant.
Draft. It's so it is such a great resource.
Brilliant. Yes. So I'm getting I want to kind of topic that we kind of touched on because we talked about fanfic and things like that. What are you a fan of? What are your fandoms? Like I want to hear about your nerdiness.
Absolutely. So a lot of like the main stuff that I write, like even for fan fiction, is mostly MCU because I've been super into the MCU since it began, and it's kind of a comfort because I completely wandered away from DC. I mean, like every decision they've made over the last 20 years, it was like, I'm no longer a DC girl, guys. I'm sorry. And I don't mean like that. I think it sucks. They have just, everything they're focusing on is all the stuff I didn't like about DC Comics.
I hate that.
It's you know, them taking the wrong stuff from the Nolan trilogy doing really well, being like, oh, it did well because it's gritty. No, it's not. It's well written. The characters are established well. It's got a great like cinematography. That's not why. They thought that all of the dark edgelord bullshit is why it did well. I'm like, that's not why it did well. It helped it do well, but those stories were about hope. Literally, every one of them was about Bruce refusing to not believe in Gotham. Like, I am going to put my blood, sweat, and tears into the people in this city because I know they're worth saving. I know that in my heart, and I will do anything to protect them. So it's just weird to me that they just went in this like, oh, dark and tormented
weird direction. Yeah.
So it just kind of like has all moved away from it, and like I'm at least open to the idea of how the DCU will go, but I don't feel terribly confident in the casting because as soon as they cast old boy as Lex Luthor, I just went, okay. And I like him as an actor, but I was just like, okay, you're gonna do the same thing you did the entire last 10 years, which is cast people who just I'm sorry. Like I said, there are people who have gotten into roles and they blew us away that we didn't know they could blow us away, and that's okay. But I was just looking at that like, it's Lex Luthor. No. He is supposed to be this intimidating, literal 12-level intellect, and just that's who he is. And you just pick this little no chin small guy. Okay, so I'm just not gonna mess with DC probably for a while. The other half of it that is really tragic is Kevin Conroy. Kevin Conroy is a literal pillar of mental health to me. When I was 6 years old, I have this very vivid memory of seeing the scene in Mask of the Phantasm when he's at the graveyard and he's begging his parents to let it be okay that he fell in love. And like, somehow my little 6-year-old brain could comprehend how important that was. And I fell in love with him from the moment I saw him in that. And so unfortunately his passing was like a big thing in my life. Like it's been 2 years. I'm still like, if I talk about him too long, I will start crying. He was literally like a father to me. Yeah. And
I understand that.
I want to be in a place in which I can watch other people voice Batman, and I just not there. And there's so many good alternatives too, but it just, I got to learn how to heal from it and like be okay with him being gone. And it was lovely that I was one of the few who got to meet him too, which is great. I'm so glad that I was able to do that. He was everything you thought. He was everything you thought he would be.
I love it when they turn out good. He was so sweet. Anita agrees with you.
Yes.
Anita agrees with you. Kevin Conroy was the best
and so Batman. Gracious and so kind. I mean, really, like I said, I left that with tears in my eyes because he was everything I had hoped he would be. And I actually have a nice little memory that's attached to that. So I went and saw him in back in 2013 when he was in Dallas, because that's the closest he had ever come to my side of the fence over here in Georgia. And so we flew out. I flew out with my friend. I can't remember if my brother was there. I think it was either my brother or my friend. And there's two little things that are related to it. So one, when I met him at the table, and it was just so sweet, and he was just so nice and gracious with me. But I got to attend his panel, and there were two things related to the panel that actually are on camera if you ever look them up. And so the first one is that I had gotten up to the mic and I had asked him, hey, what's something that being Batman has taught you over the years? And when I tell you, he gave the most eloquent, beautiful answer. I was so deeply touched, because the summary of it is, he was like, well, what I learned from it is that you can never use your trauma as an excuse to be a bad person or to harm other people. You have a responsibility to take that pain and do something productive with it. And I was just, it literally standing ovation. Everybody clapped. And like when I got to sit down, everybody in line told me, thank you for asking him that. That was so beautiful. And it's on camera, and I love that. The second one's funnier. So he gets about most of the way through the panel, and a question that's asked is, hey, what's the weirdest thing somebody's ever asked you to do in your Batman voice? And he was actually drawing a blank. He was like, oh no, I'm not really sure. I can't think about the top of my head. And so again, huge Kevin Conroy fan. So what do? I go, Captain Sunshine. And he goes, oh, Captain Sunshine. And he launches into the funniest story about when he played this character called Captain Sunshine on Venture Brothers, which if anybody of you guys have seen it, you know what I'm talking about, because it was so disturbing, but it was the funniest thing you will ever see in your life. It was awful, but it was so funny. And he does this wonderful little anecdote about when Jackson, what is his last name? I'm so sorry. Doc Hammer and Jackson, I forgot his last name. Jackson Public. The two guys that make Venture Brothers. And this was about season 4. And so they gave him, I think either I don't remember if he applied or they called him up and they were like, oh my God, we know this is really messed up, but we would love it if you would come read lines for this effed up character that we created. Are you down for it? And so like his anecdote is talking about the fact that he couldn't decide if he wanted to do it because he knew it was going to be messed up. Like he read the script and he's absolutely cackling as he reads it, but he's like, oh my God, if I do this, I'm going to mess up my entire, like all of my fans are going to be like, our childhoods. So
no,
yeah, I always tell people
fans were all. I feel like his fans were all okay. That was awesome.
It was, and it had the exact effect. That, again, like I said, he was saying he was just a little worried about how it would be perceived because it's just so out there for him because he's just pretty much stuck to what he does. But it was really rewarding for him, and he enjoyed it. And again, it turned out. It's so messed up, but it's so fascinating and so fun. I love that he decided to do it. It really, really went well. So those are my little, but that's what, like I said, I get worked up about him because he really was an important part of my life. And, saying goodbye was hard for all of us. I mean, just everybody.
And I feel like I think that it's not uncommon for us to have a real emotional impact to the loss of a star who maybe we've met them, but we're definitely not buddy. Like I felt that way with both Michael Landon, who played Charles Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie, because I was basically raised by Charles Ingalls. So when he died, that was rough. David Bowie was mine. He was my big one. It took me a full 2 years to be able to listen to the Black Star album because I was hard. Devastated. Like I'm literally wearing a David Bowie t-shirt underneath my sweatshirt right now, but I never got to see David Bowie in concert. So I had tickets twice. The first time was back in like the late 80s or late 80s, early 90s, probably 89, 90, something like that. And I had tickets and I was broke and I'd spent like my money on my tickets and I was supposed to go with a friend and she bailed at the last minute and my car broke down that day and I could not get there. And there was no Uber back then.
Yeah.
And there was no way to even get rid of the ticket. To sell the ticket, there was no internet.
There was no internet.
I obviously didn't get to go. No. Then when we were living in Fort Lauderdale, he came to Miami. And so I got tickets and I had like 12th row or something. I was like, we are doing this, man. So we go and we have pretty good seats. And we sit through the opening band. I don't remember who it was. And they were fine. And we're waiting. And, I go out and I get my t-shirt that I'm wearing underneath this shirt. I'm like, oh, so excited. And then one of the roadies fell from the catwalk and he ended up dying. But obviously David canceled the show, right?
Yeah.
So and he never rescheduled it. So we just got a refund. And so I never got to see David Bowie. I was so sad.
Sorry.
I know. I was so sad.
That's how I was when we lost Arlene Sorkin.
Oh yeah,
the voice of Harley Quinn. So, well, again, like I said, my bread and butter growing up was Batman the Animated Series. So, like, I'm not kidding. That's part of my mental health. So, when I would have the worst day and I was like bottom of the barrel, depressed, can't get out of it, I would always turn on Harley's Holiday. because no matter how bad my day was, Harley had a worse day than I did. And it would always give you just that teeny little serotonin boost of like, at least my day wasn't as bad as Harley's day. And like,
my series for that is The West Wing. Actually,
there you go.
I watched especially, and I will be watching it very diligently over the next few years for sure, because it was definitely a staple. At least every week I was watching some part of West Wing, because because Aaron Sorkin was such a freaking brilliant screenwriter. Have you ever I did his masterclass on the masterclass website, if you haven't done that, that is like, it is fabulous. He basically has a bunch of young screenwriters in a writer's room, and they basically work together to create, a script, which was really cool. So it was really an interesting view into like kind of what a writer's room looks like.
I would love that, just because that's been a dream of mine. Like I want to be I want to see what it's like, because like I said, I want to see it from a perspective of like, okay, when we get things that are bad or mediocre or whatever, are you aware of that, or are you guys in denial? So for example, Red One just came out.
Do you guys know that it's shit, or are you just oblivious to how bad
I really do mean, like, I want to know from a curiosity standpoint when these things get made and they're not good. I just want to know, do they know? So like I said, I was just talking about Red One. Red One is not a bad movie. Red One is just the blandest thing that I've ever watched in 2024. And I'm just like, but I don't get how you made this bland. You had a winning formula. Save Christmas, Chris Evans, The Rock.
I mean, how can you mess that up?
How do you mess it up? It's right. It's a home run. Like, there shouldn't have been no obstacles, but it was the most bland, like, flavorless.
That's just a shame.
I know, because like my mom said that too. She was like, "Really?" I'm like,
how do you have Chris Evans and The Rock and it be flavorless? Like, you have to work hard,
and that's what I mean.
Work hard for that.
I mean, that script had to have literally just been like the most empty. Because, like I said, I suspect it was written by AI, because characters will just do or say something, and you're looking at them going, "That's not what a normal person would do." Like it. Yeah, there's just moments that feel really unnatural.
It's interesting that you think that it was written by AI and then produced. I mean, that's really interesting.
I don't know. It just gives me this sense. So, for example, like, and this isn't really a spoiler. It happens the way that the movie does. So again, the bad guy person, they need to recruit for the good guy mission or whatever. You bring him in. Okay, cool. He finally sees a magical being that is absolute proof that what she's talking about, she's not bullshitting. He sees it. It walks past him and everything. He knows it's real. He does not proceed to ask her 2,000 questions after that scene. And that's what I mean by, if a person wrote this, a person would be like, yo, I just found out the Headless Horseman is real. I have about 9,000.
I have questions. I have questions.
But the movie just keeps going, like he's not gonna freak out and be like, okay, I found out magic is real. What else is real? He should have a whole tirade. Nope. Movie just keeps going like he didn't just find out that magic is real 2 seconds ago. That's what I mean of like, guys, come on. And so, like I said, that one was puzzling to me just because I don't know if, like, okay, so I relate this movie to Men in Black International, which was terrible, but not anybody's fault other than, like I said, bad script. There was nothing you could have done. But Tessa and Hems and the director all have explicitly stated, we knew that script was crap and there was nothing we could do about it. So we tried to improv about 50 to 60% of the dialogue to make up for it. And I find it so weird that Red One didn't do that. Like, on paper, it's a very dry thing. So I assumed that when they cast The Rock and Chris Evans, they were gonna let them bring their charm into it,
Zhuzh it up.
Nothing. It was just like dry, like every single line is an action cliche of some sort.
And that is so frustrating. That's so frustrating because there are so many really good screenwriters out there who just can't get their foot in the door, right? There's so many good ones. And then we have this dreck but we say the same thing about publishing, right? About traditional publishing. You pick up a book, you read it, you're like, Okay, well, that was a waste of my time,
Well,
you know.
the funny one that was cracking me up, and again, I apologize if anybody reads her books, and I don't mean this in a knock of a way, but when people started pulling excerpts from Colleen Hoover, that was a very funny day. I was like, and this lady is like a bestseller too. And not to say she has no talent. I just mean the excerpts that people were showing me, I was like, okay.
Right? Yeah, right?
This is interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so before we've only got probably about 5-10 minutes left, but I do want to swing back around to your stuff because didn't you just have a new book come out, Starlight Contingency? Wasn't that new? Didn't that just come out like a month ago?
It did.
Not even just a few weeks ago, maybe. Yes. Let's talk about that for a minute. So I know it's out from Falstaff. So give us just a rundown of what it is.
Absolutely. So I met John Hartness, I'm going to say in 2021 or 2022. We were finally at the same con together. And I think he and I were either on a panel or we just had met. And after we have a really, good productive panel, he swung by the table and said, hey, I've been hearing a whole lot about you. We have really good things. And you interested in pitching me a book? And I was like, absolutely. I'd love to pitch your book, sir. And so he gave me his contact info. And so he said, okay, I want you to send me your 3 best pitches. And I will see if that's something that I'm interested in out of those 3. Cool. And I write up the 3 that I have and send them to him. And the 3 that I had, there was one that was basically a YA fantasy. That's my take on Avatar: The Last Airbender mixed with Lord of the Rings.
That's a good mashup.
It was very interesting.
Good mashup.
And then the other one I had was kind of like an Inception type of thing that was about dreams and dreamscapes and like mind control craziness. And then the last one was the Starlight Contingency, which is actually a story that I had written just for NaNoWriMo back in 2011, which is hilarious because I learned about NaNoWriMo the same year. I tried it and I beat it in my first year. And I was like, I don't know if that means I'm amazing, but holy shit, because I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I really didn't.
Good job.
Thank you. But again, I wrote the book and then literally left it in my drafts and never looked at it again because I was like, oh, I wrote it in a month. Of course, it's terrible. And so, of course, in the irony of ironies, that's the one he picks. And I go, okay, I better make it not stuck now.
You're like, man.
That's okay. So, and the other part of that was hilarious about that is that it was also unfinished because I hit 50,000 and I stopped because I was exhausted.
You're like,
I mean, it's a lot. And so, he picked that one. And I said, okay, cool. And so basically over the next year or so, I beefed up all the stuff in it that was obviously, like I said, written for NaNoWriMo, obviously stuff in it not good. And then I finished it by adding another about 40,000 words to the count because I think it ended up somewhere between like 90, 100,000 words. And after I turned that back in, he was like, "Yep, sounds good. So you want to write 2 more? Cool, I will write 2 more."
Dang, nice job.
Yeah, and so the second one I turned the pages in for this past July, and so I would imagine it's up to him. I don't know how the release schedules are going to go, but since I turned into pages, it'll be interesting. We'll see if he wants me to start book 3 in the new year or if we're going to do like a couple of years out between each title. So we'll find that out soon enough. But yes, it is a trilogy. In terms of what it's about, it's my love letter to Titan AE by Don Bluth back in the day. That was one of the sci-fi films I watched 1,000 times as a kid. It was
I
thought it was such a great film. And it's also because it's Don Bluth's works are very, very, what's the word? Specific. And I like that because unfortunately it's not profitable, but I love that shit. He is he knows who he's writing for, and it's not a lot of people. It's an acquired taste, but I like the way that he makes things. I think they're always so creative and vibrant. I still love traditional animation, and I'm sad it went away and it's kind of relegated to only anime and TV shows now. But it was just one of those things of I had that VHS on all the time as a kid. And so I thought about something that I could write in a month where it was like a nice bite-sized type of story. And that was what jumped out at me. Is like, okay, why don't I do an homage to a story that I really enjoyed? But I wanted to write a space travel because I just hadn't done it in that point in my life. And so that's kind of where a lot of it came from, was it's definitely an homage to that. And then it's a lot of other like smaller things that I really enjoyed at the time. So at the time, I was really into this show called Nikita with Shane West and Maggie Q. It was a spinoff of like La Femme Nikita, but not the TV show, like the original Luc Besson one. And I was into that show like you would not believe for like 4 years. And I still think it was a lot of fun. It's not good. It's very cheesy, but all the action sequences are fire because Maggie Q. I mean, Maggie Q is just an incredible martial artist. My goodness. And her chemistry with Shane West made that show. Their sexual tension is like Mulder and Scully good. It is like,
and Anita is on your page again. Anita loves Nikita as well.
Nikita was a lot. And again, not I wouldn't call it a good show, but if you just need like a turn your brain off entertainment, easy. Good stuff. Loved it. And so I kind of folded some aspects of that show into this for the characters because it was just something that I was really passionate about writing because I really enjoyed Shane West. I've had a crush on, like I was telling the story. If anybody knows that actor. So I'm going to say 15 or 16 or something. And I'm walking through the house and I turned my head and my mom was watching ER at the time. And I go, no, who is that? When I first see Shane West, I was like, okay, ER. I didn't know we were having hotties in here. And I walked around the couch and sat down that very day. And I said, who is that, mother? She tells me. And from there, it actually formed this like hilarious little bond she and I had. So that was my last year of high school. And so I started watching. So cool. We started watching ER together. And so when I left for college, we kept watching it together and we would call each other and talk about it afterward. I know, it was like the cutest little memory. So the reason it was ER.
He was also in Salem. He was also in Salem, if you watched that. Yes. Oh my God, that was so good.
Yeah, I love Shane West. I've loved him in everything he's been in. But
no, Salem. The show
Salem. No, I know. Salem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I hadn't seen it yet, but I knew he was in it.
Yeah. He was good. Anyway, please go on.
No, you're good. And so the reason that we had picked ER is my mom is a registered nurse. And so she actually would watch the show and just kind of see how realistic they were able to get it. And she was like, all in all, it actually was pretty darn good. Like they knew their stuff. Nice. And for the most part, they were actively trying to make it look pretty accurate. So that is what she and I got. I've always been interested in healthcare, but not from a practicing standpoint. Just I think it's fascinating. And so that was what we would talk about each night when we would kind of recap what happened on ER. I would say, okay, so when they did this part in the episode, was that kind of like procedure? Was that a little bit different? She'd go, okay, well, this is about the part that they got right. And this is where they had to kind of like change it just for like, tension or whatever. And so that was what we used to talk about all the time. It's just, we would just kind of recap what the episode was about and stuff. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. So I always have that fond memory of Shane West being related to that because I just started watching the show because he was hot. I didn't even.
I mean that's valid.
I did end up liking the show though. I did. I was. I never went back all the way back, but I did like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good show. My favorite was the one where the one chick got killed. The one where oh my God, I can't think of his name. The young guy, the young doctor, he got knifed, but the blonde girl got killed. And she was like, it was during a party and she ended up being in, you don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, never mind. The way they used the music in that scene was in that episode was really, really good. If you want it, send me a message on Facebook. I'll find it for you, and you'll know what I'm talking about. If you watched it, it's in one of the earlier seasons.
I started at 12 and I never went back.
Yeah, you may not have seen it, but it was good. It's good even just to watch on its own. So
no, I was going to say the show itself. Aside from Shane West, no, I actually liked the show. I was like, it was a good show. Engaging. It's very engaging.
Yeah, it was a good show. It was a good show. Okay, so that is Starlight Contingency we were talking about, y'all. It is on sale now. We have links to Kyoko's stuff down in the notes. Definitely go check that out. It's out from Falstaff, and it came out wasn't it just like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
It was October 29th. It was Halloween weekend.
Oh, fancy. Nice. All right. Well, our hour is up, Kyoko. But I have had so much fun with you, and I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation. You are awesome. Please let folks know where, like I said, we'll have your links down in the show notes, but, let folks know where they can find you.
Absolutely. So all my stuff is at shewhowritesmonsters.com. And then actually I do have a couple things coming up. So there's an event in is it Snellville, I want to say, I think, called Book Flood. I will be going to that on December 14th. It's just a very small, like, little book event.
No, that's in Smyrna.
Smyrna. Okay.
Too. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I was like, it's an S, and I forgot if it was Snellville. Yeah. Perfect. Smyrna.
No,
okay.
Snellville was a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, good. So I'll be going to that. And then there's an online con that's called ConCon, and ConCon is going to be an online, like, Discord type of convention. And so I'll be I think I'm modding 3 panels for that. And it's just a completely online free con if you guys are interested in that. And then, like I said, that'll be over the weekend of, I think, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. And so you can just kind of hop on and off as you like. You can look and see if there are different rooms and panels that you're interested in. But yeah, if you wanted to look that up, that is called ConCon, and that'll be December 13th to the 15th, and that'll be on Discord and online exclusively. And so, like I said, I've got 3 panels for that. And then I think that's kind of it for my year. I'll be hoping to get approved for JordanCon next year.
Woo! Yeah, I applied for JordanCon too this year, so we'll see how that works out. So more cons we get to see each other at and not interact hardly at all.
We'll make time.
We will make time. We will make time. So, okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. We got several comments saying that they had a good time. So awesome. And y'all, don't forget, it's always time to go indie now.